ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming His Excellency, Mr. Arthur B. Culvahouse Jr., United States Ambassador to Australia, to deliver our 2019 graduation ceremony keynote address. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the faculty and the administration here at Carnegie Mellon for inviting me to speak with you today. Also would like particularly to acknowledge the family and the friends of the students who are here. It's a special day for you. I remember fondly my late parents attending the one graduation that I did attend, which was my graduation from the University of Tennessee. And most especially, I want to congratulate the students. Congratulations to you on a singular achievement, and it's a special day for you. You're to be commended, and I'll try to add something to it. If you will allow me, I'd also like for this to count as one of my graduations. When I graduated in 1973 from New York University, I really didn't graduate. I mean, yes, I got a degree, but I took my last law school exam on a Friday in New York City. And that following Monday, when I should have been graduating, I was in Washington sitting behind Senator Howard Baker at the Senate Watergate Committee hearing. So I never got to wear the robe. So I'm glad to be here today finally wearing a robe. But I have attended a number of graduations. I had 3 daughters who went to college and graduate school. I had nephews, family friends, neighbors, friends. And so I've been to a number of graduations, and the speeches, it occurs to me, are pretty much the same, all right? We're amongst friends. I haven't been to ambassador school, so I'm not terribly diplomatic. I'm more of a political ambassador, so what I'm about to say would appall my colleagues from the Foreign Service, but most graduation speeches are too long, okay? They tell stories from the distant past, long ago, before the students were born, and they ponderously proclaim self-evident truths. I remember one for one of my daughters where the speaker ponderously told the students that your future, your whole life lies before you. One of my daughters leaned over and said, "Isn't that rather self-evident?" But in any event, I've checked the speech I'm about to give against those criteria. And I've checked every box. I'm going to be too long, I'm going to tell stories from the distant past, and I'll probably tell self-evident truths. But maybe amongst all of that flotsam and jetsam, there'll be something that might be useful for you. Let me start with a story from the distant past. Thinking about today, about what I might say today, I thought about my first day at New York University School of Law. I grew up on a farm in Tennessee. I went to college, the only college that my parents could send me to, 50 miles away from where I grew up. And I was lucky enough to earn a scholarship from NYU, but I'd never been to New York City. And this was before the days of the internet, but I thought I should put on my Sunday best to go to NYU Law School. So I arrived fresh-faced and ready to learn in the American Center of Counterculturalism, Greenwich Village. It was drug-infested. Anti-war demonstrators had taken up residence, but yet here I show up from Knoxville, Tennessee in a freshly pressed white suit, looking like Colonel Sanders. Suffice to say, I didn't fit in very well. I'd like to tell you I started a new trend that everyone in New York City started wearing and Greenwich Village started wearing white suits and looking like Colonel Sanders, but that's not the case. Indeed, I needed to adapt. And that brings me to the first three themes I want to speak about today, and that's adaptation. I guarantee you in the 2 minutes that I'm speaking that some of you have received a WhatsApp message or a Snapchat alert or have been tagged on Instagram. And I also guarantee you that my staff in the back have been snapping about me, much to my displeasure. It seems that every moment of our lives are now steeped in technology, whether you want it, and as is the case, I suspect, with the students, you're comfortable in that world, or whether you are forced to do it, like me, and I'm not terribly comfortable in that world. But to be an effective United States ambassador in Australia in this environment, I have to adapt and I have to become technology savvy. And that forces all of us to adapt. I find that living and working in Australia is in many ways like living and working in the United States. The average person here, I've learned in 65 days, wants to have a fair go. They want to do well at their job. They want to support their family. They want to have the personal security and freedom to realize their dreams. But those hopes and dreams will fade and fail without continued growth, without continued innovation, without continued adaptation, fostered by your generation. Your innovations will break down economic barriers, will reduce costs, will grow economies throughout the Indo-Pacific region. Indeed, you're starting your lives at a pivotal time. Events are moving very fast. You're entering a workforce crying out for your skills and crying out for the subject matters, the expertise that you've mastered. And I have full confidence that you will harness the energy and the excitement of new opportunities. But I caution you that everything moves on. The skills that you've gained are cutting edge. They're the pinnacle of what can be taught today. But how about tomorrow? Not very recently, the chancellor of another university told me that he was highly confident, he was supremely confident that the skill set that he was teaching his graduating engineering students would be relevant and would have a half-life of less than 5 years. And that he hoped and he prayed that his graduating students had been not only taught skill sets would be relevant for the next 5 years, but also the skill sets that will allow them to adapt and continue to learn and to innovate and continue their education in the workplace going forward. I hear the same theme when I'm around Australia, visiting the shipyard out at Osborne, visiting the military, visiting U.S. companies, visiting your great educational institutions, visiting energy facilities, visiting a lithium hydroxide processing plant out in Western Australia. All of those institutions, all of those peoples, all of those employers tell me over and over again that their workforces are having to adapt each and every day to master the competitive landscape and to realize the opportunity. It's a constantly challenging environment, a perpetually challenging environment, and I want to encourage you to learn to adapt, which brings me to my second point, the importance of leadership. When I was sitting in your seat many years ago, I would have said that leaders are born. Leaders cannot be made. The arrogance of youth. I was flat wrong. I was 100% wrong. In fact, even then, without realizing it in my early 20s, I was the product of informal leadership training from great teachers, from great coaches on athletic teams, from a great scoutmaster, from great parents. But since then, I've formally gone back to school to learn how to be a better leader. I've spent time at an executive leadership training at one of America's great business schools. I've been taught leadership training in government. I participated in seminars throughout my professional life. Leadership training is a never-ending process because leadership techniques are forever evolving. I want to especially emphasize the importance of a traditional way that good leaders learn, and that's by cultivating and having mentors, by having people above you in the hierarchy who will take you under their wing as a protege, who will teach you the practicalities of your career, the practicalities of your profession or your business. It will teach you how to be good citizens, how to be good colleagues. I was greatly benefited by having a former chair of my firm who also subsequently became Secretary of State, Warren Christopher, to take me under his arm when I was a second-year law student. I was greatly privileged of having Howard Baker. She became my mentor and took me to the Reagan White House to be White House counsel. I learned much from them. Find mentors early and often in your careers and literally sit at their feet. Ask them what has made them a success. Ask them what they have to teach you. And if you find yourself in an institution which does not value mentorship, find another institution. Ironically, some of the great leadership lessons that I've learned along the way have been in the capacity of my mentoring younger colleagues. Some years ago, a trusted colleague at my law firm, I was chair of my law firm. I've been practicing law for 25 years, 30 years. But this respected female colleague took me aside and asked to talk to me about my proteges, about my mentees. I expected her to say what a great job I was doing. That's not what she said. What she said was, AB, do you realize that all your proteges are white guys named Brian? My immediate reaction was, well, they're not all named Brian. There was one Lee in that group. But they were all white guys. She was right. I was mortified. I'd fallen into the bad habit of walking down the hall, rounding up the usual suspects, the people that looked like me, that I felt comfortable with, that I didn't have to, that I was really comfortable about. It was me being comfortable rather than me doing what I should do as a leader of a law firm. After that, I focused my mentoring efforts exclusively and ruthlessly, entirely on women and people of color, people from different backgrounds, people who may have not have been born in the United States. I was a better lawyer because of it. I was a better leader because of it. And I know that my law firm was better off because of it. I'm a firm believer in leading from the front and taking responsibility for those who serve under you. A well-led organization treats its people well. A well-led organization treats its people with dignity, especially its most junior employees, and embraces diversity as a prerequisite for success. So I will say to you, learn from your masters and become a mentor. pass along the knowledge and experience down, and future generations will be all the better for it. Which brings me to my third point. Be decisive and execute fiercely. To make a difference in the world, you must be decisive. Fast-paced changes of the modern world do not favor dithering. They favor decisiveness and fierce execution. Another old story, but one that's dear to my heart. I worked for Ronald Reagan when he was president. Ronald Reagan announced that he was going to go to the Berlin Wall, to the Brandenburg Gate, and announced that the Berlin Wall, which had stood since 1961, which had stood almost 40 years, he was going to say, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." He was going to say that out loud publicly to the leader of the Soviet Union. All of his aides thought that was a bad idea, including me. We all thought it was a bad idea. We all thought it was a bad idea because to achieve that result, we needed to have studies, we needed to have commissions, we needed to have strategy groups, we needed to have a process. It would probably take 5 years to put together a plan to bring about the demolition of the Berlin Wall, and even then it wouldn't be accomplished in probably 20 years. President Reagan didn't want to hear any of that. He was going to say it, and he put together then and there a plan to bring down the wall. In 1987, he said in front of the Brandenburg Gate, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." In 1991, President Reagan's successor, President Bush, carrying out the plan that President Reagan and then Vice President Bush had put together, saw the wall come down. Fierce execution, relentless execution of a decision that was no certain thing at the time that it was made. Decisiveness after deliberation will set you apart from other smart people with degrees from good universities. Not all your decisions will be great decisions, but fierce execution will often carry an early mover across the finish line, even if your decisions are less than perfect. I know that every day won't be easy, and there will be hurdles along the way. But be comforted by the fact that success is measured in terms of progress, not perfection. Don't let the pursuit of perfection impede your ability to make effective decisions and then to execute against those decisions. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, graduates of the class of 2019, you have great careers in front of you. You have bright futures in front of you. I'm confident that that is the case. But to realize your full potential, to realize those great careers, those bright futures, just like the job I have of nurturing and furthering and progressing the alliance between the United States and Australia, we must adapt. We must learn to be the best leaders that we can be, and I need to learn that each and every day. I'm the ambassador to Australia. And most of all, we must be decisive and execute fiercely. All of you here today have a vital role to play in the vision, our vision for the future, our vision for the Indo-Pacific region. If we work together, if we adapt together, if we lead together, and if we execute together, we will continue to deepen our economic ties. We will continue to expand opportunities in the region for a more prosperous tomorrow, a more free tomorrow, a more secure tomorrow, and most importantly, to inspire the next generations, those who come after us, to meet the challenges of the future successfully together, as we have done in the past. Thank you very much.